Son,
Practice.
I was born ready.
Not a game. We're talking about practice.
We're talking about practice.
Not a game.
Not a game. Well, playoffs. Playoffs?
They are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Shit.
What are we? Where are we? What is this?
Bly Manor.
What day is it? What time is it?
It's Sunday.
How did I get here?
How did I get here? Sorry, what's going on?
Get out of my mind. Yeah. Bly Manor Part 2
So we're continuing
of our review.
We're continuing our episode by episode breakdown.
There's a little too much to do in one episode, so we're doing 3.
We're doing 3.
This will be Part 2, covering episode 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm. Starting naturally with episode 7. So here we go.
Here we go. Two Faces Part 2.
Is that the actual name of episode 7 or of episode?
Yeah. Oh. No, that's the actual name of episode 7. I was going to roll with it because the last one we did was Two Faces Part 1.
So that actually would flow
episode
well.
3.
But we're actually starting with episode 4. What is episode 4 called?
It's called The Way It Came.
The Way It Came.
And it was terrible.
That's a fitting name for the episode. It's,
pretty terrible.
Not great.
So this one is all about learning the history behind the guy with the glasses.
The specter.
Haunting Danny.
Yes.
In the mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the setup, they kind of show that she was engaged to her childhood boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't really in it anymore.
Into it, yeah.
She was just kind of going along with it because of the way that their families had just accepted that it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Again, spoilers. She breaks up with him at dinner one night.
Yes.
And
when they're already engaged.
When they're already engaged, like days away from getting married.
Yeah.
And they get in a fight. They go out to their car.
Mm-hmm.
Dude gets out of the car and is very quickly and subsequently hit by a truck.
That kills him, obviously. Because, if you get hit by a truck that's going at a certain speed, which this one was, there's not a good
Probably
chance.
Doesn't even have to be going that fast, if we're honest.
Yeah,
Not
honestly.
that I want to get into it.
Not that I would want to, test it or anything.
No. But, so that right before the dude is hit by a truck, his glasses light up from the headlights. And that is the image that Danny keeps seeing.
Mm-hmm.
But we find out that she could have just got rid of the glasses and she
would have been fine.
Would have been fine.
Like the glasses
I don't
are
know.
like the source of the...
This was a letdown. First of all, it was very predictable.
Yeah.
Like super predictable. As soon as they started fighting in the car, I was like, oh, he's about to get hit by a truck.
He's about to get out and get
like
hit
it's
by...
going to happen.
Yeah. I think
you could see it coming a mile away.
The imagery is cool. Like when the truck's coming and it turns his glasses completely yellow.
Sick.
Like that's it's some shocking imagery and it works. It's effective, but the whole culminating storyline there is just super disappointing. And then the way she gets rid of it, these other people are throwing bones into a fire because the cook Owen's mom dies.
Danny decided to not go to the funeral.
Yes,
because nobody really likes to be around death and funerals, but she is rightfully not wanting to be there. She's also has zero connection to Owen's mother.
Right.
Not to try to be cold-hearted or anything, but she had no obligation to be.
She hasn't been there that long.
They made a pretty big deal out of it. Like, it was this big thing that she was going to make the decision to not go to the funeral, but why would she be there in all reality?
Yeah, she's really new into this, group of people.
And so I guess it was... So Danny's boyfriend or fiance, whatever... Well, Danny's
ex-fiance...
Danny's ex dies right before she is. Well, she decides to leave on the trip shortly after.
Shortly after he dies. It's very soon after.
His mother brings her the glasses, and that's kind of when all the hauntings start.
Right.
And so that part of the timeline is kind of important to know how quickly all these events transpired.
Right.
But really, it doesn't really add anything to the story. And after that point, we don't even see that that ghost, that glowing specter, as they call it.
She burns the glasses in the fire.
And we don't see it ever again.
And it's just gone.
And we're in episode 4. One of the biggest mysteries was why she was being haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all just resolved in this episode with really no direction.
It was just such a, it was almost too simple. Like I don't know. It just seemed like such a clean cut and dry storyline. Mm-hmm. And like the only positive I can really take out of it is the fact that it's done now. Like we don't have to worry about that anymore, and we can focus on more important things.
Especially because it was kind of unimportant. It was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
I guess if we're gonna have to get it over with, like I'd rather do it there in episode 4 than waiting until episode 9 and like acting like it's some big reveal when it's really not.
I would still rather it have been more intriguing and a little more, I don't know, I guess deep.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know. Maybe it's because they set it up poorly, but for me, it really was just kind of the most disappointing plot line of the whole season.
Yeah.
And it really made episode 4 kind of, the only good parts to episode 4 were like the stuff between Owen and Hannah, like the conversations between them.
And because they're going to be important later on.
Right.
And it's this kind of the setup idea that we were talking about for episode 1, where it didn't really seem like much at the time, but it's going to be important moving forward.
Right.
Which we'll get to in just a minute. And actually, I was mistaken. In episode 2, where I thought that, or was it episode 2 or 3?
What were you thinking?
What did I think?
What were you thinking? Man,
in one of the episodes that we already talked about, I thought that there was the scene where the kids saved Danny from noticing the lady in the lake as she's walking through the house. That was actually in this episode.
Oh, okay.
When I thought before, they were trying to stop her from seeing the ghost of Peter Quint.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that was a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
This one actually does. Danny is sleeping, I think, like out on the couch or something like that. And Flora has told her many times to not leave her room at night.
Right, don't leave your room.
At the end of this episode, Flora wakes up and notices that the faceless doll is in the dollhouse. Rather than under the dresser where she tries to keep it.
Right.
And so then her and Miles have to go prevent Danny from seeing that faceless ghost wandering the hall. So it was actually this episode, and that kind of tied back to Flora and her kind of visions over the house. And how her dolls kind of play into it.
Right.
And because she saw the faceless doll in the dollhouse, and then Miles and Flora go out into the hallway and are making up some story about Flora having a bad dream or something like that to try to distract Danny from this ghost that's wandering the halls.
Right. What else? I mean, what else of note happens in episode?
That's the thing.
Yeah. It was in the end, a very...
It kind of
unsatisfying.
So it started with Hill House, but in Hill House and in this one, every character kind of gets their own episode where they explain why they are the way that they are. This was Danny's, and I don't know, it just seemed so unimportant, so pointless. Like her story does not carry much weight. It just
played out so weakly.
It's kind of strange because she is the protagonist, but in the way she's kind of a secondary character to the story.
Yeah.
Whereas what would be traditionally called the secondary characters are a lot more interesting and have a lot more depth than she has. And it feels like we wasted an entire episode on a part of the storyline that will not matter moving forward.
Yeah, that's the thing. The thing that feels so weak about it is it just ends. It's this whole the whole reason why she's running is just kind of wrapped up not even halfway through the season.
Right, and it kind of gets rid of the mystery, and not only that, but the mystery was really nothing satisfying.
It just didn't feel
like they could have, other than giving kind of the scary images of her seeing this ghost.
Yeah.
they could have accomplished the same by just explaining that she had a boyfriend that died and that's what she was running from. They don't even have to show this story. We could figure out for ourselves that her boyfriend who died is the ghost that's haunting her. If they would have just explained that she had a boyfriend that died, and that's why she came to England, really it should not have required more than 5 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't take much.
Right.
They could have even done the whole thing in like, it's cliche. They could have done it in like a dream or something. Just something.
That's true.
They didn't have to give it the time that they gave it, and it kind of wasted an episode, to be honest.
It could have been in the first episode. Like that's how the season could have started.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And then you dive into, you dive into him actually haunting her, and her trying to overcome her sexuality problems throughout the rest of the season, as opposed to it was just kind of choppy. It was really a really choppy way to kind of throw that whole story arc into the season.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the end of episode 4
is it leads into episode 5.
And episode 5 is Hannah Gross's episode. And
there's so much depth to her character,
and rightfully so. And this episode is one of the most just trippy, almost like you really have to sit down and do nothing else when you watch this episode, because you will miss so much, because so much happens in the 50 minutes.
You'll miss a lot, and it's also so important to the rest of the story. You have to understand episode 5 and Hannah's story in order to understand everything else that has happened throughout the show and that will happen going forward.
Right, exactly.
And so we kind of go back and forth between several different timelines in this. And some of them are real and some of them are not.
Right.
And we don't really understand what's going on. We see that she is she's interviewing Owen, right? In a lot of these scenes. Is that this episode?
Yes. Yeah, Owen, she's interviewing Owen,
and it keeps going. So it's showing her story, everything that's going on with her, and then it just jumps to her interview with Owen, and she keeps asking him, "Why are we doing this again?"
Right.
And he says, "Because we have to." And then they start talking, and it's over and over and over, and we don't really understand.
Right.
She starts repeating where she's at and what year it's in, and it's all kind of confusing.
Right.
It's also where she voices her, in the flashbacks, voices her disapproval of Peter Quint.
Yeah. The scene with Owen kind of becomes like, I think it's like the moment in time she chooses as like square one. Like it's a moment she knows she'll always remember, maybe. Or it's like the first time she met Owen, and she and Owen have an established connection to each other that they've kind of detailed in the first 4 episodes.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that like the first time she meets Owen would be the time in her mind that she feels like most comfortable going back to kind of like try and remind her of why her mind is going all of these places at once.
Right. And what's interesting, later on we see the same type of flashbacks with Flora, but Flora's is jumping to all kinds of different past events and past periods of time.
Right.
Whereas Hannah is always returning to that same moment.
Right.
And I don't really know. It kind of leaves some up to the viewer imagination as far as when she starts at that point, is she reliving everything from that point forward? Right. Or is that more of just like a flashback and then she's back to reality? And one of the... when she's kind of repeating all that information about who she is, where she's at, what time it is type thing.
Yeah.
That kind of reminded me of the tokens in Inception, where it's kind of telling her what's real and what's not, but also kind of that constant reminder of like, this is the information that you need. It's almost as if she doesn't know if she's in a flashback or a dream or if she's in current time, and she's having to remind herself so that she can act like how she's supposed to act, if she does happen to be in real life, but she's very confused as to if she is or not. Yeah,
I think she's confused to whether or not, and kind of what you said, like if she's actually living through this moment again, like and everyone around her is going, is moving forward on the timeline, right, in a straight line, and she's like jumping back, but she's still jumping back into herself, as opposed to like with Flora, when she jumps back, she knows she's just in a memory, and the people around her tell her you're in like this is a memory,
right? And she even tells them that she doesn't like it. She doesn't want to keep doing that.
Right. And that's one of my favorite parts about this whole episode with Hannah is even by the end, you don't really know, mainly because all of the scenes with Owen in that moment knows, because we know that Owen is in her mind, like is an interpretation of him in her mind because of the things he says to her.
He is kind of all-knowing,
right,
when she's with him in those memories.
But in all the other scenes, we're not really sure, because no one ever kind of tips their hat to the idea that they know they're not. This is like this is Hannah's imagination, or if it's an actual moment in time. I think one of the most important parts of this this whole episode is the scene with Peter.
Yeah.
After he's told the first au pair, what's her name? Rebecca. He's told Rebecca, we're going to go away. I've figured out how we can get out of here, all this stuff. And we get through, through Hannah's eyes, how he wakes up, or he wakes up the kids, and they come out as he's leaving, and they're like trying to get him to go back inside, not to go. And then that's when the lady of the lake, takes him and effectively kills him.
She does.
Kills him, and then he becomes a ghost. This is the first time we know that we've figured out that Peter is actually, every time we've seen him in the past, in the 3 episodes prior, he has been a ghost.
Well, and it's especially important in this episode as well, because later on in the episode, in one of her memories, Owen tells Hannah that something is wrong with Miles. And that's our first kind of introduction into this idea that the ghosts can sort of possess, I guess, these other, the people who are not yet dead, and kind of take control of their body. And then later on, Hannah is following Miles out into the woods and sees him talking to the ghost of Peter Quint.
Yes. And that's also the moment where Peter Quint possesses Miles. Damn it. Peter Quint possesses Miles.
Yeah.
And Miles pushes Hannah down the well.
Yes.
And kills her.
And the ghost of Hannah stands there and watches real life Hannah die at the bottom of the well.
And this is where our first episode.
And that's where Danny meets Hannah. So we find out that it was within minutes.
Yes.
That Hannah died when Danny got there. It was very recent in the whole storyline.
Yeah. Like it happened basically as she was pulling up into the driveway of the manor.
But it also explains so well why Hannah seems so distant from Danny from the very beginning, because of what she just witnessed.
Right.
And she's trying to process all of the stuff that just happened to her, and also like, why am I still here? Type thing.
And honestly, I think every time she's like, we have a scene with Hannah and she like doesn't know where she was, is because she's reliving all of these moments to try and remember, I'm dead, something's wrong with Miles, or she's trying to remember, I'm dead, Miles is possessed, and Flora could be next. Like that's why she keeps having like these those moments where she's just staring away into nothing, because, well, for one, she's a ghost, and 2, she's trying to remember how she got there. And that's, I think every time we see that, she is reliving this entire episode in those moments throughout the season, where she's like
trying to put it all together.
Yeah. It's like she's trying to put it all together, spending the time we spent in this episode is what's happening to her every time in every other episode that we see her off in her, in her head.
Right. And that also, again, ties into why she keeps having to verbally remind herself who she is, basically.
Right.
Because she's reliving it constantly. This
also, it really adds kind of to the tragedy of her story and Owen's story. Like, because, this whole time, throughout the first 4 episodes, Owen's trying to like get her out and like do stuff with her, basically, right? And you can tell that she has this desire to do so, but like for some reason feels tied down to the manor.
We learn why
in this episode,
and then it keeps revisiting it though.
Yeah,
where Owen, they're sitting at the bonfire, and he says something about going to Paris with him,
right?
And he gets up and leaves, and cannot, like, she can't go with him. No matter how hard she tries, she wants to leave with him, and she can't.
Yeah.
But Owen is not a ghost, and so he can freely leave Bly Manor, and that's kind of explained in the later episodes that we'll get to. So why don't we start with episode 6 now?
Okay.
Episode 6 kind of shows us why Henry, the uncle, is important to the whole storyline.
Yeah, because we learn. This is the episode where we learn that Flora is
Henry's daughter.
Yes. Yep. That he had with his brother's wife.
Right, while his brother was gone.
Which is brutal.
Which explains a lot of stuff.
Yes.
It explains why he's so distant from the kids, why he doesn't want to be the one to take care of them. He wants to bring in an au pair. And throughout the show, they kind of reiterate the fact that he is not involved in their lives. He will maybe send them gifts, but he doesn't want to be contacted about the kids unless it's a true emergency.
Right.
He doesn't want to be part of their lives, and this kind of explains why. We also meet his alter ego.
Yeah.
That's
what he's haunted by, which is
himself.
The most evil version of himself.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I wish we had spent more time with his character, because the way they set that up, in the way his alter ego acts, and the way they interact with each other is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
It was done so well, and it just sucks that this is really kind of the only episode where we get that.
Yeah, and it's kind of the opposite of in episode 4 with Danny's fiance that died. Whereas that was kind of wrapping up what should have been a theme that was explored the entire show.
Right.
And in a disappointing way. This was starting a brand new kind of idea in the show that I wish would have been there the entire time,
right?
And we could have had more time to explore.
I mean, technically, it has been there. Like this, I imagine his alter ego has been haunting him the entire time.
But we weren't introduced to it until this late.
Until what is it, episode 6, right? Yeah. And I mean, Henry Thomas, I think, is the actor himself. He was in Hill House, and he was in Ouija Origin of Evil. He's been in a lot of Mike Flanagan content, like movies and shows, for the past couple years. He's had a real kind of rebrand with Mike Flanagan. He really didn't do much. Like he is E.T. He's Elliot in E.T.
He's not E.T.
He's not E.T., but he was.
Could you imagine? Replace every scene that he's in with just a little tiny alien walking around. That would have made for good TV.
That would have been interesting. So,
I hate
but
myself.
Like he was made famous for E.T., for being in an E.T., and then basically until now he hasn't done anything major or well known, and to kind of see him continue his kind of path of resurgence in all of these Flanagan features is really, really cool. But I feel like his character was kind of undervalued in this season, almost. Like, not like the storyline he has is very, very good, but I feel like it could have been expanded on a little more.
I think it could have been expanded on, but we also can't compare him to the dad in Hill House. We can't.
No.
We have
and
to,
I'm not
we have
trying
to completely
to do that.
separate.
And I'm not doing that at all.
Right, but I'm saying him as an actor is not always going to have those extensive roles.
That's true.
So it's not. I get what you're saying about his character could have been explored a little bit deeper, but I'm saying that we can't expect that every role he has is going to be expanded upon like that.
Yeah, and this could also be a product of the fact that our main character just is not interesting enough to warrant all the time she gets.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes me feel like, man, I really wish Owen had gotten a little more time.
Well,
I wish Henry
Owen
had
never
gotten
really
a little more
got
time.
his episode, so to speak.
He didn't. No.
And there was nothing super interesting about his character as far as it relates to the haunting of Bly Manor.
Right. Right.
His character had a lot of depth, and his character was, entertaining.
And he was tied to Hannah. Which,
he was tied to Hannah, but I wish they would have explored Orange. Orange, you glad I didn't say banana?
Oh my holy God!
Sorry.
That's the.
I'm so sorry.
You know what? That's strike 2.
Stop it.
You've got one more.
What was my first strike?
I don't know. You apologized earlier though for something dumb you said.
I did.
I can't remember what it was,
but I also said that you should replace the uncle in Bly Manor with E.T. So I think I should be out.
That's what it was. So that's one. That was strike 1 there.
Okay. Well. We better wrap it up then.
What I love about 5 and 6 is it explores characters it explores them in such great ways because the intrigue was there at the start and we finally kind of almost get to them, if that makes sense. Like it takes till 5 and 6 to actually get to their characters and kind of expand on them a little more. But these are probably 2 of my favorite episodes, but they each left me wanting more, knowing that we could have spent more time with these 2 and with Owen,
right?
As opposed to
another point I wanted to make too is part of what's lacking in Danny's storyline and with Henry the uncle storyline is their interactions are so shallow, and their interactions they hardly interact at all.
Yeah.
It could have been so much better trying to tie them into the story, because Danny was our main character, but they chose not to use her when it came to these other characters' storylines. Right. And that might be why we're so much more interested in these secondary storylines, because they made the choice to let Danny just be her own without much connection to the other 3 or 4
right. There's so
characters.
There's so much more interweaving of character with everyone but Danny, really, in the end.
And so we also get, in this episode, we learn more about Flora's dream hopping.
Yes.
We kind of see how that's affecting her, and it's similar to Hannah's, but it's a bit different. But we also see Flora talking to Rebecca's ghost. And then Danny also witnesses Rebecca's ghost, and tries to escape Bly Manor with Flora.
Right.
And then on the way out is chased down and knocked unconscious by who you could reasonably assume was Miles, possessed by Peter Quinn.
Right.
And she's trying to save Flora from this. This whole situation.
Right. It's kind of the final moment. It's kind of the climax almost of this series. Like the last 3 episodes are when the sinister stuff really kind of kicks into gear.
Yeah, this increases the intensity quite a bit.
Right. Episode 6 does a great job of kind of detailing where, how Henry got to where he is with why he's so separate and why he wants nothing to do with the children, and it's a great kind of a brother who cheats on his or who's the cheater with his brother's wife.
Right.
I don't know. It's just it just kind of adds an extra layer of depth to his character.
Well, it adds a layer of guilt to his character, which adds so much to him.
It makes the guilt he has seem so worthwhile.
Yeah.
Because if you were to do something like that in real life, that would probably make you feel pretty damn guilty.
And then that also explains the phone calls that we've been trying to figure out the entire time.
Right.
Is he is calling in hopes that Flora will answer, and anytime she doesn't, he just hangs up the phone.
Right.
And so that's kind of been a recurring theme throughout the movie or throughout the show.
Yeah.
Is those empty phone calls that we really don't get any explanation of.
Yeah.
You know what's another one of the scariest, I think, or at least it's not scary, it's just creepy moments of the show also comes in this episode where Flora, I think it's in this episode, where Flora puts the toy face on the faceless boy that she meets.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just standing there with this like cracked and broken face with no eyes and no mouth. And it's just super freaky.
Yeah.
Like some of the scariest moments are Flora interacting with the faceless ghost.
With the faceless ghosts, yeah, throughout the entire season.
And so that was another, and that was just that the faceless boy wasn't necessarily scary, but just that image was one of the scarier.
Just very unsettling imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just
for sure.
Real strange, and kind of shows that Flora is maybe the most innocent among everybody in the house.
Right.
She's not afraid by what she's seeing, but she also is trying to humanize these ghosts, and she's trying to make connections.
Right.
She's trying to protect the other people in the house, even though she might not really understand what's going on.
She's the most innocent and the most connected.
Yeah.
Which I think looking back, Flora's character, she does so much with the house, but it's also subtle that you kind of don't realize how involved she was until you get into these later episodes and realize, man, there was a lot going on with her character and with what was going on in the house.
Yeah, I agree.
So this block of 3, like I said, I think at the start, the 4th episode, probably my least favorite and the most disappointing, but then 5 and 6, man, they ramp it up perfectly to set up the final final 3 episodes and kind of the culminating events of the final 3 episodes.
And I'm excited to talk about those. I thought that 7, 8, and 9 were the best.
Oh yeah,
of the entire show.
Easily, especially in terms of just like pacing and fluidity and
7,
how
8,
well
and 9,
they flowed.
It's frustrating because they're so good.
Yeah.
But because they are light years ahead of all the other episodes.
I would agree.
Like, it showed how much potential the show had and why it didn't quite meet it. And we'll talk about that. But
7, 8, and 9 are great because I think if you could rebrand the first 4 episodes and then take 5 and 6 as they are at their face, because I think those are great episodes. Yeah. They're just, they're kind of more of like setup episodes, but they exist so late in the season that it seems like by the time we get to them, we're like, man, I really wish I'd already seen this. If you could take the first 4 episodes and retool them better, I think it would make the show as a whole, feel a lot better than it. And we'll get into that a little more, but I am very excited for those 3. I loved episodes 5 and 6. Purely because I was so interested in the 2 characters they dive into.
But 4 was your least favorite.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, 1, 2, and 3 are fine, and then 4 was like, oh man, we really need to get something else going here.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will continue on. We'll have one more episode of the Bly Manor discussion, covering episodes 7, 8, and 9. That'll kind of wrap it up for us. If you watched to this point, let us know what you think. Also, just let us know what you think about our about these episodes. You don't have to comment on our comments. We just want to hear thoughts on all the movies and shows that we talk about anyway.
Yeah.
But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you are listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, make sure you also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Front Row Seats. If you are watching us on Front Row Seats, do the opposite.
Do the opposite. What?
Do the subscribe to those other 3.
You know what, Dom?
I could have just said them again because now I've taken up enough time to have just said it again.
You know what? This is the worst outro you've done, and for that, this is strike 3.
Strike 3?
Cut the video.
No, don't. You can't do that.
I'm telling myself, cut the video.
You can't fire me.
You can't fire me.
But
I this channel.
So next time, we'll start with the Two Faces Part 2, which is actually Part 7, whereas Part 1 was Part 3. So check it out.
We're so dumb.
Yeah, but am I wrong?
No, not technically. Technically, no, you're not wrong. Oh my God. Okay. All right.
Strike 3.
We'll see you guys. That's strike 4. We'll see you guys next time.
I might not. Well,
yeah, he might be replaced. I'm just gonna call the next person Better Dom.
Now it's just gonna be Front Row Seat, and it's you. I'm gonna be behind the camera.
Yeah, you're gonna be relegated to just producing and being behind the camera.
Okay. Well, All right. That's enough of that.
That's done. That's it.